Even am I connected? Test,
Yeah,
test, test. Can you hear me?
we're
Hey,
live here.
good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Daily Brief. Woohoo, party! Hey, there's a funny start. Am I connected? What the heck's going on? My apologies, everybody. I was running the show yesterday, and I got like no sleep Sunday night at all. I was woken at like 4 o'clock in the morning by a goddamn bird outside my window. But that's another conversation for another day. The point I just wanted to make was I didn't post the daily brief video until about 2 or 3 hours after the fact, and I kind of left Alex B in the lurch there. So my apologies, sir. Um, and now we've got the mayor of Vienna back driving the bus again here today. So hopefully we'll be a little bit slicker on that. But speaking of which, how you doing this morning, Mr. Mayor?
Hey, sir. Finally back from my locking myself out of the apartment adventure yesterday. So sorry for keeping you hanging there.
Mm,
Um, but aside from that, I'm pretty good, actually. Yeah. So,
that's good.
so
And
happy to have you back, Brian. Like I said, it's a joy and a pleasure, and I'm thrilled for today's edition.
oh, awesome. Hey, wow, that's great. Thank you, sir. And if I understand correctly, for those who follow Austrian politics, all hell is breaking loose locally there. Um,
Yeah, I guess we're in the process of losing our government. So probably not too big of a thing for a global economy or something like that, but it's pretty crazy around here.
Fair enough. From what I understand, you guys had sort of tentatively scheduled a meetup for Bratislava or something like that. I can never remember how to pronounce that.
Yeah, so I didn't really get any follow up on that. But if you're still looking out to meet Mr. John Selman and myself in Vienna or Bratislava, we haven't really chosen a location yet. Again, you can just hit me up. I guess else it'll just be Mr. Selman and me.
All right. So just an FYI, I mean, it is the spring. I know we got a bunch of these TRI meetups happening all over the world. So if you happen to be in Alex's neck of the wood, I'm sure he'd love to see you and have a drink with you and just chat in person, face to face. And, if you can participate, I'm sure he'd love to see you. I suppose too, and I see Philip is here. I think you guys have a UK meetup planned sometime shortly. So I don't know whether you are touching base with Jamie and Raf and all that, but if you guys wanted to do an update with regard to how that's going to go, I guess Philip's saying here that he can't make it, but others that can and that are in the UK area, of course, see if you can pop in and say hi. Champ League final clash. Ooh, that sounds impressive. Anyway, the point of the matter here is if you do want to come out and meet some fellow TRIers, we do have a bunch of events planned. As well, of course, we've got the TRI Vancouver meetup coming up the end of July. I'm just in the process of locking in our place. And Sen, if I'm not mistaken, I think you're going to be crashing at the pad too. So we're super stoked to see a bunch of people. We should have Sjord. He's going to make the trip. I'm not quite sure if Julian's going to make the trip from Asia or not, but we'll see how that goes. And those people that can make it to Vancouver, of course, we'd love to see you this summer. So stay tuned for updates on how that's going. I think it's we don't have Thomas here today or tomorrow, but I thought he did a great job sort of overview of the stock market yesterday. I'll try and sort of give you guys my overview of what I'm seeing. I'm still sort of getting back in the saddle, settling in. It's remarkable, actually. I forced myself just to completely disconnect from the market, from all of the, trading plans and, crypto and all that kind of stuff while I was gone. And you would think that, okay, you just hop right back in the saddle when you come back after a couple of weeks. But wow, it's maybe it's a testament to my old age, but it's taken me a good couple of days here to get sort of settled in again. There is Fjord, so I see Fjord is there, and actually Fjord and Sen might be on the same airplane coming to Vancouver. So I'm not quite sure about that, but I think they might be. But anyway, and by all means, Fjord, if you wanted to pop in and say hi, feel free. More than welcome. I think what we'll do today is just sort of a nice little overview of what I'm sort of seeing on the site and what we're seeing in the market. I'm ever so pleased to see the very hard work that Fjord's put in on this website. Slowly coming together. It's, I think if nothing else, at this point, at least, it still says beta, but at least you've got a bunch of names to chew on, ideas that you can kick around on a daily basis if you are hunting for trade ideas in the dashboard. So I'm, ever so pleased about that. The screeners, and I think even this morning, Fjord was talking with people on the site about building even more screener tools. So that's that sort of 1 + 1 = 3. We can all work together to come up with trade ideas. And the long and short of it is a good trade is a good trade is a good trade. So if the chart is a buy and we got W's firing all over the place, it'll be self-evident. And really, what I'd ideally like to see is we all just sort of work together to find these ideas. And as I said, a good idea is a good idea is a good idea. Little bit of an reminder, Bob T, and actually this was kind of a collective effort, which I was really quite pleased to see. I had been doing this weekly commodity trend survey back when I was a stockbroker. And it's not updated right now. And this is one of the things that I want to sort of review with the team. We had a bunch of people I asked who are sort of good at Google Sheets. Could we sort of, migrate my old sort of manual review of all the commodity markets and their respective trends on a Google spreadsheet, and just sort of keep an overview, and things like moving average, crossovers as signaling systems, and sort of where are we in relation to 50% rules. I put together this little thing, but I've had a lot of help from Bob T, from Jeremy, from PCA 1633. Helping write scripts to identify, trending market states. And it's coming along really nicely. And just a nice little update. We had planned when I was gone, I gave the team sort of a bunch of small little projects to work on. And so today, Tuesday, when I came back, we had planned to have a meeting to review these sheets. So that's today. That's this afternoon at about 4:00 p.m. PST. I've sort of opened up that window to do Hangouts. So if you are interested in scripts and writing scripts and helping build out this spreadsheet, feel free to pop in for that Hangout. It's just going to be sort of a collective group meeting. As well, I thought I'd take the opportunity. I've had a lot of people express a bunch of interest in the algo, the DI cumulative signal algo system that we got up and running here recently. Big thank you to Sin, who helped me sort of get this thing back on track, and then I sort of figured out some workarounds on my own. They've actually, Benjamin as well, big shout out to you. They sort of cleaned up the script a little bit and added a bit more functionality. I don't really recommend new people to trading to jump right into script trading, because I'd really like for you to learn the mechanics of building trading plans and what does a setup look like and risk management and all that. We get into scripting languages and automation in the level 2 program near the end. And then we're also planning at some point down the road here, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Sjord's actually working closely with Reza to offer Riz's educational program on how to set up sites like 3 commas and AutoView and stuff like that on TradingView, so that when you have your scripting signals come in, the computer can automatically take the trade. I will say that I'm ever so pleased at the amount of contribution from our site community on building scripts and various different scripts to use on sites like TradingView. And I've added, like I said, Benjamin did a sort of revamp of the DI script. He added a bunch of his sort of tools. He really likes using Ichimoku. So I've added this GitHub link to his script. So if anybody is interested in grabbing that sort of revamped script of his, that's probably where I would suggest you you pop on over. I know Sin also has a version of this, and he said we could share it as well. So I might also put that in the library as well. And if I'm not mistaken, yeah. So Sin's done a bunch of really cool work on TradingView with scripts. So if you are interested in that DI indicator, this indicator itself, this version, the BDB, this has a whole bunch of notes and stuff and extra code in it that is me personally. I don't want to confuse you guys, so I'm not going to really be touting this too much. But there isn't a heck of a lot of difference between the original DI code that everybody gets in the level 2 program and this signaling. It's like an extra 30 lines or so of code. So I just wanted to give you an update on that. And if you are interested in that, like I said, we're going to have a meeting this afternoon at 4 o'clock Pacific time. If you are interested in algo scripting and you have language, you have questions about that. If you are interested in the weekly commodity trend survey project we're working on, feel free to join there. And then later on this evening, I think around 6 p.m. PST, we have our regular Tuesday TRI SOF meeting, our options plan meeting. So those, and really I would ideally like that meeting to be primarily people who have taken the level 3, because options of course are pretty tricky unto themselves. So if you are level 3 and beyond and you'd like to participate in the options meeting, that should be about 6 or 7 o'clock tonight Pacific time. So just an update with regard to all that. As I'm sort of getting back into the saddle, and just a quick update. This is the Sjord. You really like this place with the wolf picture on the wall, right? So this is sort of the place that we're leaning to book for the TRI meetup. It's still sitting there waiting. It's just a question of pulling the trigger. But we have to get all that in order. I will say, as I've got back in the saddle, I will be working away on my crude oil day trading plan. So I've just been identifying levels and stuff. So I'll be sort of updating you guys on how this is going with sort of the plan that, next fall, I'd like to see a group of us go to Top Step and go and kick their butts and show them how to trade commodities. So I'll be updating and talking a bit about this as we go forward in time. But, as I said, I think literally over the past week, 2 days now, at least, I've just been sort of like, okay, all right, I got to get back in the saddle. I got to sort of, put my head on straight, all that kind of talk. I was, exceedingly pleased with Thomas's find of this koi fin. I kind of noticed that MarketWatch as a news source has turned a little bit commercial here. They're really trying to pump the sort of the paid for services. They have a bunch of, Barron's and Wall Street Journal and stuff, and they're all just sort of like, like phishing links to get you to sign up to their sites. So I'm not overly impressed with this MarketWatch site for news, but I still am watching it. But I got to tell you, I'm very, very impressed with Thomas's find of this koi fin. Really good market overview, and especially a really good source for just seeing what the news headlines are first thing in the morning. So not a bad resource to maybe add to your tool belt to keep abreast with what's going on in the market. I've been sort of just reviewing. Didn't really see anything shocking. Pretty business as usual. Unfortunately, I do see a lot of talk about Tesla falling out of favor on the stock market. So, for all those Tesla fans in the community, my apologies. Hopefully, things won't get too ugly there for you. Also watching FinViz. I like to keep an eye on these guys for the most actives. Again, not really seeing a heck of a lot going on here. A lot of backfilling. I thought it was really interesting. News-wise, we've had a few econs come out. Nothing really startling. But I did see that things like the housing market seem to be calming down a little bit, but nothing really that jumped out at me like, oh my God, that's groundbreaking or whatever. And if anything, news-wise, what I'm sort of seeing, of course, is in crypto, we had sort of a big bombshell dropped again by Mr. Or I suppose Dr. SV, whatever the hell his name is. So we'll probably talk about that in a bit. But stock market wise, not really seeing a heck of a lot that's driving price. I suppose when we look at the price charts, ironically enough, we talk about this. You never really know how it's going to happen. Sometimes you're like, well, maybe it's not going to happen this year. But sure enough, as soon as we hit the 1st of May, basically the profit takers start coming out of the woodwork. And I think it feels to me like we're in a very typical, sell in May and walk away kind of scenario. I wouldn't be surprised if we just do very simple things like AB equals CDs. I wouldn't be surprised if the market has to work its way down into sort of 38.2s. You can kind of see how this is all lining up, A, B, C, D. And that's going to take us to the bottom of value to this 38.2 first stop target. Very business as usual, very normal. And of course, this is our very normal sort of seasonal window when we should expect a malaise. And as I sort of pointed out yesterday, I found over the years that usually the stock market is pretty soft through the month of June. We do have, for a lot of people that participate out of Australia, I think UK, if I'm not mistaken, but I know there are a few countries around the world, but I know specifically Australia, they have their tax loss selling window into the end of Q2 here. So we do see a lot of pressure from those kind of people through June. Then also there's the very classic, if you just think of the seasonality plays, remember you're supposed to buy your crude oil in the middle of February, sell it the middle of May. I made money 9 out of the past 10 years. Technically the last week of, and actually we just went through it, didn't we? The last weekend of May is the official kickoff to the summer driving season. And that's usually where, wholesalers have bought all their gasoline and stuff that they're going to want to be shilling to the public through that sort of seasonal driving season window. And so we often see a bit of a pause in things like energy through the latter part of May and really right through the sort of soft part of June. As well in like the housing industry, the summer building season technically kicks off in earnest, through May, basically. And I thought it was interesting to see that even in Colorado, they're having a freak snowstorm right now. So, usually the summer building season, same sort of logic as that crude oil, it gets going in earnest that sort of May 2-4 weekend. And anybody who's going to be building houses through the summer, they usually secure all their supplies ahead of that event. So we often get a bit of a pause in things like copper, and aluminum and all those kind of markets. Actually, I was a little surprised to see, and maybe we should take a quick boo at that. The metals markets, and I think Thomas actually made reference to this recently, but you can see the copper market is basically topped. April, the end of April was its seasonal top. It's coming off here. The gold market is holding in here, but you can see silver's come right back down to its lows. Cheeky little gap on the weekly charts that should be filled in. But in essence, over the next month or so, we should see these markets ultimately find a bottom. And as I'd said just a moment ago, seasonally, usually our bottoming window is the end of June. And through that July 4th weekend. Once we hit that sort of July 4th weekend, people are feeling a little bit more optimistic, and a bid starts coming back into the market following July as we sort of get into Q2 earnings season. So don't be surprised, stock market wise, if there's like a bit of a lull here. And I've kind of noticed that in Stockland. Suppose this is crypto. But if we pop on over to, where should I do this? I guess we'll go over here. If we pop on over to the stock market, I see a bunch of malaise. I think Thomas was even talking yesterday about thinking about shorts. I suppose if we wanted to short the stock market, probably look for counter trend rallies, reload zones, those kind of things. We might just AB equals CD our way down here. Totally possible. And maybe, this happens to be the Dow futures. It really all depends on what market you're interested in. But I suppose we could maybe start thinking about bearish bots if you wanted to play the market short. Something like that, boobity boo, and then we'll go setup. So we've done 33, haven't gone beyond 66, so that's still technically alive. And we'll just eyeball this quickly for you, something like that. Yeah, so you can see this double top here, the breakdown. There is the 25 level. We've got one high, two highs. Is this our third high to roll over? We could even make the argument that you might even get a nice little LJ. We got 1, 2, 3 tests of a trend line, break that. Market structure on the other side of it. Time to go short. So I can see the stock market shorts working away. And as I said, like seasonally, this is pretty normal. So we'll keep an eye out for that. I don't know whether options-wise I really have any trades, but it'd be interesting to through our meeting this afternoon to see whether anybody, TRI, SOF people, have identified any put options that look attractive here. On the long side, I'm not really thinking too much. It's fascinating to watch how some of these names that we were watching over the spring are moving higher. We did have, just before I left for vacation, we had a couple names pop up. This Idera, he popped up, gave us a double, then came right back down against the lows. So we'll see how that goes, but basically in a free position. A lot of the positions that I did put on through the winter, they did hit free positions, but some of them, they just haven't performed. I think actually, and I saw Sjord here a little while ago. I know he joined me on that Sonos. I think it's sort of come back down to the bottom end of the range. I'm going to be looking for just sort of malaise through that. The CTL, same sort of thing, back down against the bottom end of the ranges. But those are kind of names that I bought thinking out into sort of the late summer, if anything, even into the fall. So I'm not really in any big hurry on any of that stuff right now. So I'll be keeping it as sort of an eye. I haven't really reviewed these names in earnest, but I'll be sort of getting back into the saddle and sort of, studying these things in earnest over the next few weeks. And as I see bottoms potentially come in, I'll be more than happy to report them to you guys. I am. Let's see. I wonder where we should go next. Not a bad idea just to take a quick boo at China. I did see. Here, why don't we do it on a new one? I did see that Thomas made reference to China yesterday, just very briefly. I think this chart basically tells us the whole story. We rallied into reload zones, beautiful head and shoulders top, failure. I think you could argue that head and shoulders actually hit its objective. And if anything, right now, those people that did take this very aggressive bot, they had their move stop to scratch, had the move stop to trailing. Probably best that you just hop off on this head and shoulders failure here if you did take that long. And if anything, same sort of thing as the U.S. stock market. And as I said before, I suppose you could come up with reasons. Mr. Trump and political saber rattling, all that kind of stuff. I think this is just really more seasonal than anything else. But I could very easily see if this little AB equals CD, kind of like the Dow, plays out, that's going to take us down into this reload zone down here. That's probably where I'd be expecting the market to find some support. So if you are a China watcher, my hunch is they're planning to bring this market back down into these areas. Interesting to see how this could turn into a very wide head and shoulders. So it's interesting how we have this fractal head and shoulders top up here. You often see that on the head of the head and shoulders, there's a little fractal inside. So if this is a bigger head and shoulders, it's almost cliche how there's a little head and shoulders right up at the top of the head of this bigger potential head and shoulders. If that develops, then we're probably going to have to come right back down against these lows. Any way you shake it, it's probably a little bit early for us to be thinking about bull right now. If we could start getting some higher lows and higher highs to print here, we might start seeing the bullish case again. But for the time being, kind of like the U.S. stock market, sell in May and walk away, and a lot of the commodity markets, probably just a big hurry up and do nothing right now. Let's see, what else should we talk about while we're here? We talked at length about gold and silver through the winter. I thought it was really interesting to see that silver actually did make this technical correction that we were all sort of anticipating. Coming back down, filling in these gaps, validating the AB equals CD. I got a funny feeling we actually have to come all the way back down to the bottom of value here. So for those people that are gold and silver bugs, think you got to just cool your jets. Seasonally, of course, we talked about it, very, very tough time of year for the gold and silver. And that will probably go on for about another sort of 3 or 4 weeks, get through June. And then we can start thinking about seasonal bottoms again, but just nothing to do there right now. And as you can sort of see momentum here, we actually just M'd out again here. So it's not like we're imminently about to turn here. We might get some nice dead cat bounces back into, it looks like there's a little bit of a gap here. Yeah, right there. So we might get dead cat bounces up to that 1480 area here, but it's going to be a little while here before this thing actually starts issuing quote unquote buy signals. So just a big hurry up and do nothing in the gold and silver market. I do find it interesting that crypto and Bitcoin could actually rally in the face of gold and silver coming off. I do talk lots about the correlation between the Japanese yen and gold, and I thought we saw that again here. I know you can't really see it too well here, but hopefully you can see big rally in the Japanese yen, and that was basically this window that gold had its little rally. Japanese yen screaming back down against the lows, and gee whiz, here's gold coming back down against its lows. So I think that there's a lot of correlation here. So, if we are thinking about looking for bottoms in the metals, I would like to see some sort of bottom in the yen. You can see these very noticeable gaps that need filling in. A huge one that they're in the process of filling in right now. Probably, pretty cliche, but it's remarkable how cliche this whole game is. Reload zones coming in. There's the bottom of value. It's a little bit cheeky. There's a bit of a hole. Then, of course, you got this monstrous gap all the way down here. So do we need to be in a really big hurry to call bottoms here right now? I don't think so. I think you just got to cool your jets. And I suppose, wouldn't be a conversation without a good look at the euro and US dollar. Euro continues to sort of slowly work its way lower. We're threatening to lose these lows that we saw back in April. If I understand correctly, and I was just sort of very briefly reading the news headlines, but I think people in UK are expecting this Boris guy to be the next prime minister. So we'll definitely be watching the Brexit situation closely. And I suppose you could argue, let's take a look at that while we're here. British pound enjoyed a nice counter trend rally, but there's another one of those head and shoulders patterns. So things are looking a little heavy here in British pound land again. Euro itself, of course, looking a bit heavy as well. And now I hate to say it, but it almost looks to me like they're setting up the pound to go after these recent lows. So we could do a AB, CD. So don't be shocked, guys, if you happen to see the pound zip down into this area here. That really wouldn't surprise me one bit. And actually, we probably could also do a AB. Maybe let's change this to like purple or something. And clone that. CD. All right. So yeah, we have now two AB equals CDs painting this sort of 115 area. So be careful here. All those British pound bulls, she's starting to look heavy, and we might even get like a moving average cross here, which would, of course, sort of, further validate that things are looking heavy. I suppose you could also argue, too, that there could be a bearish bot setup working here. Bot setup did 33, no more than 66. And we'll put that over there. So we got one high, two highs. There is the 25 level. Interesting how that double top actually is right off of that level. Nice inside bar failure there. And we could also probably do like a little LJ here. Right? I'm not quite sure if that lines up. That's a tough one. But nonetheless, things are looking a bit heavy in British pound land. So interesting. I just quickly eyeballed this. Looks like the bot's going to be targeting 114.5 area on the British pound. So, be ready, everybody. And so, sort of further to that conversation, the euro still can't get out of its own way. Mr. Trump, of course, is doing lots of saber rattling, trying to get the Europeans to, level the playing field with regard to selling automobiles into the North American market. Interesting how this euro still has this big old gap on the charts down below here. And this is actually, I think, a really good example of that sort of like that slow dripping market that just slowly grinds lower. This is a very tough trade. And unfortunately, usually markets end with moves with big climactic sort of parabolic up, parabolic down. And, the irony of it all, of course, is that that's when the public, sees in the newspaper, oh my God, this market's moving huge. Right, I better sell, I better buy, whatever. And this like slow drip of death actually is just basically trend continuation. So I am going to be looking for some sort of big event here in the euro over the next weeks. I have no idea what it's going to look like. I thought it was just really interesting. And of course, commodity currencies having a really hard time right now. Australian dollar made a new closing low there. Canadian dollars hanging in against these lows, but you can see the trend is still very, very much down. Interestingly enough, the I suppose with the platinum and palladium markets rolling over, the South African rand, another commodity currency, is now starting to go back into the bull. But the Russian ruble is sort of hanging in here. Maybe we M out here and crap out, but interesting to see how the ruble is really bucking the overall trend. So we'll keep an eye on that. But, long and short of all this, and this is why I really like this trend following model, is really ironically enough from a US dollar index perspective. We just broke out through basically about a year and a half consolidation. At the very least, we should be thinking things like parking garage. So considering that's a pretty wide, well-defined range, at the very least, we should be thinking like 200%. That's also going to be a big fat round number. Also notice there's a big juicy gap up there that still needs filling in. So you can almost see the writing on the walls. The pound's looking weak. The euro still looking weak. The yen is looking weak. And of course, the US dollar index is looking strong. As well, too, seasonally, if you're kind of iffy about global growth and you see, of course, lots of political uncertainty, then interestingly enough, your risk off bet is actually just to go run into the US dollar. Just buy US treasuries, US T-bills, collect your short-term interest rate. Technically, the US dollar is guaranteed by the full faith of the US government, yada, yada, yada. So it's sort of like the safest place in the world to be right now. And that's usually what happens during, sort of broader market growth is in question. People just go run into safety. So really, this is basically validating our sort of seasonal thesis. And also, too, if you look at the spreads between who's paying some half-decent short-term rates on paper versus who's actually cutting rates, the Americans are still, I think, outpacing the rest of the world very comfortably. And actually, it'd be interesting off of Thomas's site to see whether we can actually get I don't know whether we can or not, but it would be really cool to see whether we could actually get the short-term interest rate matrix. Okay, here we are. Yeah, perfect. Awesome. So you can see Japan's going to pay you. They're actually going to charge you to own their paper. So is there incentive to own their paper? Not really. Spain, Germany, also negative. Italy's got just a very slight premium. UK actually has better rates than most of its European counterparts. And there's the Americans with their big fat 2.5% yields. So just from this little picture right here, just this picture alone should sort of validate why people are running into, and that's not really what I wanted. Well, I guess this is probably down here, but I can't seem to scroll. Oh well, that didn't work. Let's go. 1 year. Is that what we want to do? I guess this is yield curve. Interesting. Well, I got to get used to this tool. But anyway, point of the matter here is you can see the Americans much, much higher rates than most of the rest of their global competitors. And then, I mean, I know, and I've been seeing a lot of this sort of talk recently. China is going to do the petro yuan and all that stuff. But, I really think that we need to remind ourselves that the Chinese and the Americans technically, I would actually argue that they're the same currency now because China still has the peg. And then secondly, can you really believe China is a safe place to put your money? What's the legal system like? Same sort of thing as, yeah, you could go and throw your money in India, but, thank you, Reza, don't get chatted. I mean, what's the legal recourse if they default? What's the inflation rates there? I'm sure they're still running pretty high. So whenever I do these sort of, international money market, where am I going to put my money if I've got $1 million? I usually only look at the major developed sort of Western countries, G6, G10 kind of thing. And you can clearly see that, there's a lot of incentive to own US paper here. So given, seasonality, given the political uncertainty out of Europe right now, and then given the fact that the Americans are going to literally pay you much, much more to own their paper, you put it all together and it makes complete sense why, to me, the US dollar is moving up here and a lot of the rest of the world currencies are moving down. It's interesting. Cave Bear makes reference to Australia. The only thing I would say about Australia is, who is Australians? Who are they the supermarket for? And they're the supermarket for China. If this sort of China growth story is still, I don't know, then what does that do for the demand for products out of Australia? And so, yes, you could argue that Australia and Canada are still holding in here as half decent. But the problem here is that I believe that the commodity story is over. That was the last 17.5-year cycle. We're now going to transition into this new growth cycle. And I remember specifically growing up, the early 80s were just brutal on Canada. Given our overinflated real estate market, if I understand correctly, Sydney, Australia, Sydney is their real estate market is just as bubbly and just as frothy. So I don't know. I think you got to temper your enthusiasm when it comes to the commodity countries right now. But that's my 2 cents. Okay, so that's a nice overview of sort of what I see happening here macro-wise. I hope that helps you get an idea of what I'm seeing. Actually, as traders go, I think ironically enough, if somebody said, Brian, find a trade for me in currency land, I actually really do like the idea of shorting British pounds here off of this bot trade level. Well, we'll see how that goes. And if anything, Tom is going to be away tomorrow, so maybe I'll do a rundown of the TRI SOFs and any new ideas the gang has tonight through our meeting. I'll plan to do that tomorrow. All right. Holy Jesus, I've been talking for 45 minutes. I haven't even covered anything. Jesus, where the hell does the time go? Okay, so maybe we'll leave the rest of the stock market at that. Let's pop on over, talk a little bit crypto right now. Not a bad idea for us. And, just as it's the same as the rest of the markets, we can take a look at how the crypto markets are trending right now. I'm seeing lots of green on my screen here, which I think is really encouraging. It's been, a pretty nasty 1.5-year slog here. I don't know whether you're aware of this or not. If you haven't heard this before, then write it down. But usually they say that bear markets, the typical bear market is about 18 months in duration. So and we sort of did this review. There is 18 months. The last bear, and you can see that basically the market finished its bear cycle almost right on cue. There was one little extra FU against the lows, and then woohoo! So I'm actually thinking that we are in sort of this phase of the market, which is encouraging, right? It is interesting to see within the crypto space. I'm actually a little disappointed that this rally has been as strong as it has. We might even get into conversations of too far, too fast here. If anything, for us to really know that this is the bottom, I'd really actually like to see the market come down and check these levels. And maybe that's what we sort of have to do here. You can see we had the moving average breakout, big rally, moving average breakout, big rally. Then sort of seasonal top, middle of July there. And then we rolled over and basically tested the lows again. Considering too, we also have Litecoin halvening coming up here this summer. So, that's a nice fundamental driver, which is encouraging. If we did the same sort of pattern, you can see that's the basically July 4th. Interestingly enough, remember we talked stock market seasonally. Usually it finds a bottom. And I like to think of Bitcoin as sort of a fear proxy in the market. So, if we saw that the stock market itself bottomed that end of June, first week of July, then that would actually paint some sort of, peak for Bitcoin if we do the same thing as we did last cycle, first week of July. So, I certainly don't have any sell patterns here. There's nothing really for me to get aggressively thinking short over the short term. But at the same time, too, look how far away we are from these moving averages. And, as I had said before, if this is a nice, healthy, sort of normal, happy-go-lucky market, I would actually like to see us come back down against these lows, test this W for real, and then turn back up. And then we'll know that, okay, finally, crypto winter is over. I also noticed too, and I remember this through this last cycle as well, the FUD is absolutely rampant through this period. And of course, the altcoins, they're all going to zero. They're all worthless, blah, blah, blah. So, if anything, we got to get through this, get the market trending back higher again off a nice weekly W's. And then we'll probably see, the bottom slowly come in on alts as it did last cycle, and we start the game all over again. So we're getting our way through this correction. We're almost done, and hats off to everybody who didn't lose their cool through this and just sort of survived. It's been a pain in the butt, and it's been a long, slow slog. There's nothing really going on. I've done a little bit of nibbling over the past 6-8 months. But ironically enough, just even the Trex account alone, sitting on a big old whack of cash, and the equity sitting at about 50 or so in crypto coins. So, just even this Trex account sitting at about good 160, 165 grand or so. And it's just been just a hurry up and just go slowly. I have been doing some nibbling, over the past 6 months or so. I think I've maybe put in maybe about a half a Bitcoin into names against the lows, but good old Trex, of course, they're still going through their delisting process. And I'm seeing a bunch of names getting just absolutely destroyed here on silly Trex delisting nonsense. So you have to be cognizant of that through this kind of market as well. And if anything, Adam, and I saw Benjamin, and I also saw Joshua. They've been working really hard on building spreadsheets and Google Sheets that auto update with fundamental scores. And are they listed only on Trex, or are they listed on multiple exchanges? Those kind of things. And I think that is just top-notch work, guys. And if anything, if you're thinking about putting new money into the market, new money to work here, I really like the idea of us being rational analysts and combining, good fundamental stories with half-decent price charts. So, I'll be even myself watching these guys develop these spreadsheets. I don't know, Adam, are you okay with me talking a little bit about your recent spreadsheet that you posted in the lounge? I was very, very impressed with the hard work you guys are putting in. He says yes, so I'm going to assume that means it's okay for me to show this to you. I know that Benjamin, and hats off to Benjamin. What a fantastic programmer. Benjamin's got this his script here, and he loves his little BC icon. So he's got his paquettes coined by volume. So pop into the lounge to just grab this. And then Adam's put together this awesome spreadsheet coined by volume. And again, this is the difference between just sort of like amateurs and professionals. Just throwing darts at a dartboard and rational analysis. I love how Adam is taking this to the next level. And so I think he's even said, make a copy of it on your own. But just some really great work the community is doing together to come up with good fundamental names, and then let's go look at the price charts and see whether we've got some W's to work with. So
Brian, can I pop
hats off, way to go, crypto enthusiasts, way to go, TRIers. 1 + 1 = 3. This is really why I built this website. I can't do all of this. Brian, didn't hear you, Adam.
Brian,
oh yeah,
I
don't. Adam, are you? I'm using this Brave browser, and I probably shouldn't be, but for some reason, after I join, if somebody else joins, I can't hear you. So is Adam talking away here? Alex, can you talk?
Yeah, I think Adam has some updates concerning his spreadsheet there.
Okay. I could pop out and pop back in, and then I can hear you. Or Adam, maybe what you might want to do is touch base with Alex, and we'll give you like a segment to in an upcoming daily brief to talk a little bit about the work that you and Benjamin are doing. Can I say? You can say it, but the problem is that I can't hear you because of this silly Brave browser. Maybe do you want me to hop out and I'll hop back in? I can do that. It's not really that big of a deal. I'll be right back. I watched the whole damn thing collapse.
No, I think it's fine if we just let Adam have like a couple of minutes, right? And when he's done, I'll just
tell him.
Back to you.
Yes,
totally. Okay, yeah, sure. I'll put I'll take your cue. So, and we are recording this, and I guess everybody else can hear this. So, Adam, you got the floor. Do you want to screen share that spreadsheet?
No, I don't want to screen share.
I'll pop out. I'll pop back in. So you've got the floor. Go for
it. This is so much messier than it was intended to be. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, like, you can, when you have the spreadsheet, make a copy of it. What I've been doing with it is sorting the columns by either the volume or the fundamental analysis scores. And then what I've been doing is all the coins that look like they should be delisted or I have caution or concern about. I'm actually going into TradingView, marking what they are, and deciding at what level I want to try to cut them at. So that's all I was going to say is try to make this. You can make the sheet your own from where it's at, and then customize it and use it for your own purposes and sort it so that the data makes sense for you. That's all I had to say.
Awesome. Sounds good. I guess Brian bailed on us, so we might need another minute for him to come back. So if you wanted to share something about your sheet there or run us through there, I think that's cool. Or else I'll just...
Do I have it? I don't actually have it open. Hold on a second. Bear with me a second.
No worries.
All right, let's see. And then to share this, go here. No, not there. Share. All right, so can you see the screen?
Yep.
Okay, so this is basically the sheet that I put together. The red are coins that I'm more that have a lower Bittrex volume and a lower coin checkup score. And what I've basically been doing is going through, and I'll sort the sheet by different criteria in order to evaluate which ones would be more important for me to consider cutting from my portfolio, and then going through on TradingView and just sort of marking which ones they are so I can see them at a glance. If they get any type of spike or volume, I'm going to try to grab them as they're going up. But really, if you can go here, file, and make a copy, and then you'll have your own copy of this, and then you can work with it as you wish. And it could be useful to you. And Piquet, I think Benjamin will eventually evolve it into something else. But that's really all I wanted to share. So didn't mean to cut Brian off.
And I can hear you now. Yay.
Awesome.
So I hope the family is doing well. I don't know. Do you see James? I don't see James on the site. I hope he's
Yeah, I see James fairly regularly. We went out for dinner the other night.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. And I did notice, actually, I think he and Garrett are still doing Hangouts for anybody who wants review on level 1 material. So I'm so pleased to see they're still working away. So thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. And 1 + 1 = 3, that kind of stuff. Love it. Thank you so much for your contributions, Adam. We really, really appreciate it. And as I said, I mean, you're pretty much OG around here now. So if you want like a regular sort of spot on the daily briefs to contribute, I would absolutely love to give you that opportunity. It's up to you. And you can sort of sharpen your broadcasting sword to the point, kind of like where Thomas, where he could literally, go get a job at a major media site now. He's so good. So if I could get you to that point, Adam, I'd love to. But it's up to you, right? So, okay. So Adam's told you a little bit about what he's seeing on his spreadsheet. I think it's totally awesome. This is still technically, especially altcoin land, still kind of crypto winterish. We're working our way through this bear. How long does it take to actually turn this market back up into a new bull? Only time will tell, but I do believe we're much, much closer to a sort of secular bottom than we are the top. At least we don't have to worry about going in and buying the top and watching the Bitcoin market just completely melt down. So that's encouraging. As you can sort of see on my matrix, lots of coins just slowly turning the corner here. And actually one thing I thought was really cool, which hopefully we can maybe even integrate on the site going forward. I like to follow this sheet. But this is all denominated versus Bitcoin. I thought it was really cool last night. Joshua and I were chatting in the lounge that he's actually done some of these charts of these altcoins in US dollars. And what's really interesting is if you actually look at, like, I think we called this, Dav called it like 4th tier, Schult coins, shit coins, whatever the hell you want to call it. Interesting, if we look at this index versus US dollars, it's basically just flatlining. And that's basically what I would expect. Verge at 2 sats. Remember we went through that example where it just sat there for like 6 to 8 months in a massive, long, narrow sideways channel. That's, if anything, what this kind of market needs for the Schult coins. It was really cool to see that when Joshua did his fundamental analysis index versus US dollars, this has actually got a W working, and it's slowly working its way higher. I think he even posted it in the lounge this morning, which I thought was really encouraging, because it just goes to show that, if you measure everything just versus Bitcoin, you can get kind of skewed when we have these nutso face rip rallies in the short term. Where is that? Maybe oh, that's too bad. I thought this might be it here. No. All right, so I don't have it just off the top of my head, but maybe I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, okay, here it is. Oh, good, I did find it. So this was Joshua's chart that he put together of his Schultz FA list, right? The names that actually meet the sort of fundamental scoring model. And you can actually see that it's slowly making higher highs and higher lows. Interesting to see RSI trend. We're up against the top end of the trend channel, but nonetheless making higher highs and higher lows and not overbought yet, which is encouraging. DI index actually flashing buy signals here, and you can see that our trending model very much like what we're seeing when I showed you this, that we're seeing a lot of markets that are stopping the downtrend and actually starting to trend back up again. So that's really great to see. New trade ideas. I don't know whether it's a good idea to chase names like Litecoin or Bitcoin up top here. I really did like Thomas's comment about things like Stellar Lumen. Still basically at its bottom. And, if you want to try and hunt longs off of the bottom, at least you have a defined risk window to work with here versus, if you go and chase something like a Litecoin or a Bitcoin up top here, well, the risk window is actually pretty steep. So I'm really interested in that. Interesting to see that this Tron idea did not crap out here and actually went and double bottomed. I suppose you could argue this bot setup now. We got 1 low, 2 lows, 3 lows, 4 lows, lots of lows to work with to try and sneak your way in here. Keep in mind, this is a weekly chart. So things are looking, optimistic. And, for those people that are hunting setups, I like the idea of the more senior names, those fundamental analysis names that have sort of passed the grade. You're hunting setups. Try to avoid chasing markets, though, that have already run up quite a bit. And, of course, we all got a very clear lesson. What happens when you chase markets that have run up too much, you often get bitch slapped pretty hard like this. It is interesting to see that Bitcoin is just sort of consolidating nicely here. Algo might flash a new buy signal here, and that would basically be the resolution of this horizontal level. And hopefully everybody can see that would paint a fairly big inverted head and shoulders, which would actually start projecting price targets up into sort of this 10, 11,000 area. And I know you guys would all love to see that. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, you could make the argument that you could even be hunting bot setups, but keep in mind, this is lower time frame. This is more high octane. This is not just sort of buy and hold. This really isn't nanny nibble. This would be, trading setups. So if you're not quite ready to trade setups, you're still in sort of nanny nibble mode. You're trying to sort of still figure out what setups work best for you. Maybe refrain from taking these lower time frame setups, but nonetheless, it is interesting. I have been sort of, I committed to vetting out this algo setup trading plan over the past 4 or 5 months. I'm actually extremely pleased to see the results. So I'll be reporting if this thing fires, and you can see I'm watching it right across all the exchanges. And at the moment, we're sitting basically at 2s, basically kind of a neutral vote. Not really overly bullish, not really overly bearish, just waiting for the resolution. If we M out here and crap out, well, then I can completely understand that this will dip down into sort of very negative territory. If we can resolve above this horizontal line, then that makes complete sense. We might get into another one of these sort of face rip rally kind of modes. I think probably the only other thing that we should mention, even though probably well, here, we'll put that away. put that away. Let's go over here. I don't know whether I want to do it. Yeah, let's maybe do it here. This is a good example, and I was sort of talking about this with a couple of people in the lounge yesterday. I do believe that we're in kind of a market, especially when Trex comes out and says, we're delisting a whole bunch of these names, right? We get into one of these type of markets where they just throw the baby out with the bathwater. I don't really know the fundamental story on this that well, but I am seeing a lot of this kind of anecdotal evidence that, if you can get long off of sort of 30, 40 sats, can you guys see that just a return to value actually gives you a double? So I do see a lot of this kind of market setup right now. This might be a little bit aggressive. If we look at things like moving averages, they haven't quite crossed yet. I thought I had that on here. Moving averages. There we are. So, the trend hasn't turned up just yet, but you can clearly see the bullish divergence. You can see Willie nice and stupid here. And if anything, now is when we want to be sort of hunting for kind of structure to take us back up, even just into the levels that we saw through March, April. Does this happen because Bitcoin comes back down, or does this happen because these guys have some sort of fundamental story and you can see the volume coming in? Somebody's buying a lot of this thing here. I don't know, right? And of course, if we want to look at fundamental drivers, 1 + 1 = 3. If anybody can sort of find out what the fundamental story is going on in the background here, love to hear that kind of talk. But I am seeing this kind of market state right now. So, if you've been sitting on the sidelines, if you do have a dry powder, if you are trading setups, I really don't have a problem buying, if this it starts Wing out. I really don't mind buying these kind of things, risking to new lows. And even, if we zoom out, the great part about this is we're now back basically against, and I guess this one we're even at lower lows, eh? So we're below value here. You can see that not a heck of a lot of interest in doing business. It just sort of drifted lower here. Somebody's clearly coming in on the buy side here. And a really good anecdote of sort of OBV divergences. It's interesting to see how money continues to flow into these names, and yet price just keeps drifting lower. So at some point, this thing's going to pop. You never know exactly when. I mean, you just don't know. It's the way trader's life goes. If you want to sort of do that nanny nibble kind of strategy, okay, great, 1% of your portfolio, give yourself the opportunity to do a few purchases, nanny nibble wise. I really don't have a problem with nibbling, but again, remember those are extremely small sized orders. The only other thing that I suppose we should talk about here today is good old Mr. SV. If I understand correctly, he's actually filed a patent with the U.S. Patent Office on the white paper of Bitcoin. You never understand what the motivation of this guy is. I suppose to a certain degree he would like to see his coin come back to life. I do remember that he said that he was basically going to wage war on all the altcoins. I have no idea the story there. I suppose one could argue kind of like that story that we just saw a moment ago, and maybe Storm is rallying off of that. Maybe it's related somehow. Maybe you could argue, well, Brian, I'm a real big fan of LJ's, and I suppose actually we could even go there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Lots of tests of this trend line. It's funny how even somebody yesterday said, well, there's no way you'd touch BSV here, right? And I was like, well, I don't know. The market, the trade is a trade. I suppose, seeing on this massive volume coming in here and on the news that Mr. SV wants to take ownership of Bitcoin, I suppose, if you are sort of, market agnostic, You can see how the market actually set up a very powerful little double bottom right off that level. But you'd have to be sort of absolutely immune to all the rhetoric. I like that, Alicia. Traders got to trade. You know, I mean, politics aside, I suppose you could just make an argument. If I did want to take a shot, where should I be hunting? And actually, we were even talking about this in the lounge last night. I'm exceedingly pleased to see that the good majority of our community is forcing themselves to actually act like institutions, to try and force themselves to be buyers against bottom ends of ranges. And here's just a fantastic example of that. I mean, you just don't know in this crazy world what the hell's going to happen. I mean, maybe the guy is Satoshi. I don't know. But the long and short of it here is you can see the reload zone test. Nice sort of M within W down in RLZs. Then this cute little W coming in right off of this trend line resolution. And if you had like massive volume signal to tell you to act, go for it. And of course, 0.008. Did you get a double yet today? I don't know. Oh, look at that. Isn't that interesting? So you can almost see that this was a manufactured trade. As the breakout is at 8, and what a coincidence. Do you guys see where this market stopped? Does it make sense now why the market stopped up here at 16? I mean, this happens so often. It's ridiculous. You'll just see it over and over and over. So I don't think it should surprise us. And had I been trading this, I could have very easily, banged out a double at 0.16, and then everybody on Twitter would be like, "Oh, that damn Beamish stopped the bull market and all the TRIers." But really, the market's way bigger than us. And really, you should look at this and go, well, it makes complete sense why the market stopped where it did. In essence, as far as I'm concerned, anybody who did take this trade, they got themselves a free position on this coin at this point. Not a big surprise whatsoever in my eyes. Only time will tell. I suppose one could argue more conservative investors would say, okay, fine, we've got the breakout of the trend line now. I want to see a W, right? If I really believe that this thing is for real. Also interesting too, how, on the profile, you can see as we got up into the area, and you guys have heard me talk about this before. Anybody who did buy against these areas, maybe you were nanny nibbling back there in the winter. We get the counter trend rally, and these people that bought through here, they can stop sleeping on the couch, right? They get their original money back. Phew, never buy another one of these crazy altcoins again, whatever. And so I think it makes sense why we're seeing resistance come in at this level as well. And, just like that other coin that I was looking at there just a moment ago, this is kind of this type of market that I think we're in now. It might even be an idea that if you are going to be trading these kind of things, kind of like this guy, that if we do get a pop back up into the previous traffic area, and like we said, 43, gee whiz, what a coincidence, that's a double. You can almost see the same thing happening here. Maybe in this kind of market, you're just like, Brian, I don't want to build free positions. I just want to make money. So I'm going to blow the whole damn thing out here. That's entirely up to you. There's no right or wrong answer to this. The right or wrong answer is what works for you. But I do believe we're in one of these type of markets where they've basically thrown everything out the window. Everything is going down relative to Bitcoin. Of course, keep all in mind, all these are priced in Bitcoin. And I think that there are some opportunities out there. So have some fun. Get out there and hunt setups. I do remember, do you guys remember a couple months ago? I seem to remember saying, with regard to altcoins, because remember, we went through actually a pretty happy-go-lucky market, and a lot of altcoins popped up there, and we were banging out doubles and all that. Do you guys remember that? About a month or two ago? And I seem to remember saying, we got to cool our jets. Maybe we got to just slow down a bit. And I didn't expect that this is what it was going to look like, but nonetheless, I think we're back into, okay, now we can get hunting again. So build your plan, right? Vet your setups. What is it that you like to use? Are you an Eltangonator type of person? Are you a Davo type person? Are you a bot type person? Really define what setup it is that speaks to you, and get in there and have some fun in the market. But understand this, we're still, especially with altcoins, they're thawing, right? I would say that the crypto winter is, very late in the winter, but still don't be surprised if there are icy patches out there on the road. It's probably the last thing that we'll leave off with is, Litecoin does have its halving event coming up here. So if we were Litecoin enthusiasts and we were kind of thinking about what we would want to see happen, I remember previously Litecoin topped out about a month or so ahead of its halving, but there was a really big sort of Ponzi in China on the Litecoin halving. So, I think that's probably what we have to be sort of thinking about here. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like one more pop-up here, but at the same time too, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. This thing is basically quadrupled off its bottom. That's a pretty big move. We're starting to see the anecdotal evidence of divergence. Nothing's been confirmed yet. You can see MACD histogram has made a lower high here, even though price made a higher high. If and when these divergences do actually start confirming, then we'll know that these bigger coins, especially like Litecoin with its halving event and all that's been priced into the market. So, just be aware of that. Okay, we're well past the top of the hour. What do you think, Alex? Did I do a half decent job here for these people today?
I think you did an awesome job, sir, as usual.
All right. Well, that's good. I appreciate that positive feedback. Reza, if I'm not mistaken, Sjord said that he's going to sort of take over working with you to get your program up and running on the site. So I'm actually really pleased to hear that, because I think you and Sjord are like two peas in a pod. He had said that you had just sort of asked for a bit more time. So basically the ball's in your court at this point there, Slick. And of course, just so you're aware, I'm getting a lot of people on a daily basis asking for your program. So there's lots and lots of demand for your stuff. So I just happened to see you there. So okay, I think we'll leave it at that for today. Like I said, we have the scripting meeting at about 4:00 this afternoon to talk a little bit about the weekly commodity trend survey scripting stuff. And then we have the TRI SOF for all the alumni and level 3ers later on this afternoon, more like this evening. So I'll be busy on the site in and around meetings for the rest of the afternoon. And if I understand correctly, the level 2 program has been launched. So all those people that are in the current level 2 program, you should be watching your videos. I guess it's the introductory week, so we're just doing a bit of a review to get going. And the level 3, Julian and I still need to meet on that. I was under the impression that basically everything was going to be up and running by the time I got back. But he told me this morning that he wanted to wait for me to come back and just make sure that we're all on the same page. So my hunch is we'll probably be opening up the level 3 for this coming week. So get ready for that, all you level 3ers. Okay, I think we'll leave it at that for today. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. I hope there was a value that you found in anything that I imparted on you today. See, we have a fairly full lounge here, so good to see lots of activity and interest on the site. Let's all sort of continue to keep working together. 1 + 1 = 3. It's kind of funny because every time Shane comes on and does one of his security modules, somewhere something hits the fan security-wise. Did see quite a few people were posting an article somebody wrote about them getting hacked and losing $100,000 out of their account. I gotta say though, when I read that article, something didn't seem right about that. Like if you had just been hacked and you had lost a lot of money and it was a huge part of your net worth, it's something just didn't smell right about the way that gentleman wrote the article to me. Now, maybe it was totally truthful, but nonetheless, it doesn't surprise me because usually right after Shane does one of his security modules, something hits the fan somewhere. So, at the very least, everybody make darn sure you've got 2FA set up on your accounts here in crypto at the very least, right? I do like. I don't know what you never know in this crazy space. Maybe the guy sells treasures, maybe he's got like an interest in some sort of product that he talked about that is sort of cold storage or whatever. I don't know. You never know with motivations when it comes to money. I mean, there may be 100 different things. Just something didn't. I won't go into too much detail. Maybe we can talk about it in the coming days. But it just seemed to me that a guy who was like he even said, I'm absolutely depressed, I'm absolutely gutted. And yet the flow charts that he put together, I mean, they must have taken days, if not weeks, to put together. So something just didn't seem right. Not a guy who was like suicidal over losing a whole bunch of money. You wouldn't have put that much time and effort into those flow charts. Like I said, something just didn't smell right about that. But nonetheless, word of warning, listen to what Shane said yesterday. If there's anything that Shane said yesterday that can make you sleep better at night, I think that's really good. Just to take the extra precaution through this time period. Now that we're sort of, we're not in face rip mode. So, we're not having to worry about, oh my God, have I got all my orders working? Maybe take the time and just sort of, review your sort of personal security and how you're going to handle this. And also, too, I wouldn't mind getting an update. Alicia, I know you're one of Dav's people. I think there's a couple other Dav sort of referral people that are on this call. Dennis, I think you're a Dav fan, aren't you? I wouldn't mind getting sort of an update on how that Pandora's wallet is going and whether that is a realistic alternative for our security concerns as well. So something for everybody to think about. But I do like that we're all sort of communicating and working together to make ourselves feel a little bit better and more confident and more secure. 1 + 1 = 3. Absolutely love that stuff. And let's just keep continuing on that road. Okay, guys, I think we'll leave it at that. So have yourselves a great rest of your day. Play from a position of strength, build your trading plan, vet your setups, understand what type of risk manager you are, and get out there and have some fun in the market. All right, guys, all the best. The only thing left for good old Brian to say at this point is a big bye.